Hey guys, Stealth here. Today we're looking at the 119th Independent Tank Regiment. These guys pack a punch with the T80 UD. Dangerous tanks, lots of armor, lots of firepower. So let's have a look at how you can assemble this battle group. These guys have all the tanks, really expensive tanks, and if you're looking for, let's say, a 1v1 deck, this is definitely not the type of battle group for you. Let's have a look through the deck, starting at their strongest point, the tanks. Because by god, they have a lot of armor. The mainstay of this battle group, I would say, is the T80 UD. This thing is going to cost you 340 points. It has 21 points of frontal armor, 9 side, 3 in the rear, 3 in the top. It has a great gun, 20 AP. It has 65% accuracy. And if you need to reach out and touch something beyond that, it has 2800 meter range on the reflex. That's 6 ATGMs that you get with this tank. Of course, you have to be stopped in order to actually use these, but they too hit like a truck. In fact, they hit harder than the main gun. They also are capable of dealing with infantry fairly well at good range, 1400 meters. So this tank is really deadly. Downsides? Not many. I would say optics. And stealth, well, it's a tank. It's not exactly an infantryman lying in a bush with a ghillie suit on. This thing is going to get detected pretty far afield, but detecting it is one, killing it is going to be number 2. You get a ton of these. You get 6 cards of the T80 UD, or calls as they call it in game. If you want to upvet them, it goes to 1. You can upvet them all the way to elite if you so desire. It doesn't change much because you can get the same result by just having a T80 BVK command tank close to it. So the way that I would build out this part of the section, this part of the battle group, is I would start with 2 BVKs, just to make sure I have 4 command tanks. Now these are expensive, they can hold their own, they do not have the ATGM, but they do have a double machine gun. 1 heavy, 1 medium. They have 17 frontal armor, respective to the 21, so slightly less armor. I would keep these slightly farther back and basically just spam these things, because the battle group that I showed off before, the 19th? Yeah, I think it's 19th ACR, 11th ACR, they didn't do that well against this battle group, because I simply couldn't kill the UDs. Now, the situation for battle groups that are not great with dealing tanks can be further exacerbated by getting slightly cheaper T80Us and potentially TO55s. I would bring a couple of these just to make sure that I can deal with infantry in a more efficient manner because of the napalm weapon. It only has a 1025 meter range, so don't expect this thing to hit very, very far, but it will get a lot of damage to infantry pretty quick. Of course, units such as the Dragon, or Armed with the Dragon, or greater range standoff ATGMs will eat this thing for breakfast. If you get closer to, let's say, regular infantry armed with the Law, this thing is going to absolutely toast them. Moving back to logistics, how are we going to keep this whole thing supplied? I would make the case that for this particular battle group you do not need a FOB, or a... I'm not going to pronounce that. You don't need a forward operating base, you don't need a resupply station, you just need to be able to keep up with your armor and make sure that they keep their fuel, that they get fixed, and that they just keep going all the time. I would personally pick the Euro 4320, not flying material right away, just make sure that these can drive to where you need them to go, and then the Mi-8 MT to actually resupply these guys. I think this is all that you need. If it's going to be a long 10v10, you might want to bring like a second card of these, or get the MTLBs, because at least these guys have armor, these guys barely have any armor. If you really want to use a lot of artillery, that's the really only reason why I would pick a FOB, because the battle group does have a fair bunch of artillery with it. As for quick captures, I'm going to use the BTR-60. Don't expect this thing to survive. But then again, if I want a command vehicle to survive, we've got the T80 BVK. Infantry. Few options. I would say that in this situation you will need the BMP. You will need the infantry, so you're going to use the most Jockey. Pretty good RPG, 18 frontal pen. This is going to cause concern for most of the NATO tanks, but really only use it if you don't have one of those T-80UDs in range. I'm going to take them at the lowest veterancy. They have a dual purpose: capture buildings, make sure that buildings are secure, but also basically scouting by force, just moving forward and seeing what comes up. The next card that I would bring is Spetsnaz or Spetsnaz OP. The Spetsnaz OP are pretty OP as far as I'm concerned. 21 AP damage on the RPG, and you can fly them in on an Mi-8. Now, why would you want to do this? In my case, I want to do this to make sure that they arrive quickly, they are a forward deploy unit, and on top of that, the guys themselves cannot deal with infantry very well. But the Mi-8 certainly can. So the Mi-8T with rockets is going to take care of infantry, and if something bigger comes along, you just use the RPG-29 and you blow up a tank. Next up, Pulemechiki. These are armed with a fairly bad RPG. They only come in the Gas 66. I'm not very enthusiastic about these. I would probably bring either Sapri or Sapri RPO. The RPO with the RPO rocket launcher, incendiary rocket launcher, these guys throw satchel charges, really big high explosive charges at the enemy, but only short range, 150. Want to do it from slightly farther afield, 500 meters, the RPO is your friend. So in this situation, I think these guys are going to have to sweep a building pretty close, mostly in tandem with the BMP-1s and the Motostrelki, so let's go with the BTR-60. And potentially get one of these, the NSV with their 12.7mm heavy machine gun. You could bring them in the MTLB if you want some armor on it. You can just bring them in the UAZ if you want speed on these guys. As for the rest, I generally in this battle group wouldn't use command infantry. They can be useful. It's going to really come down to your playstyle. Alrighty, 3 options. Basilek, mortar. You got the MSDA-B, 152mm. Unfortunately not motorized. These guys are going to have to move the gun themselves, which means it is not very mobile. Fortunately, well, not counting counter battery, you don't really have to, because you got 24km range. Of course, you will have to move once counter battery becomes an issue. I would want to bring a couple of these just to make sure that the HE can soften up a position so that my infantry can move in. So I want to have 1 card of those. I want to have 1 card of the Vasilek, making sure I can provide smoke. And if you do want mechanized artillery or a self-propelled gun, the Gvozdika can do that for you. It has 14km range, it has less HE, it has more shells. Does it? Yeah, 4 more shells. And it, of course, is able to shoot and scoot a lot better than the MSTA-B will. Recon? Few options. This is going to be really quite important what you pick, just to make sure that those tanks actually have something that they can see and something that they can shoot at. So, Recon, I would bring something like the Motorozvedka. Depending on your preference, you can bring them in really cheap, or you can also bring them in with the rocket helicopter. These could be a pretty useful sidekick to the earlier picked RPO Spetsnaz, sorry, the OP Spetsnaz. This way you spot, you got a second rocket attack helicopter to first take a position and at the start just take that position quickly and then wait for your tanks to catch up. You can also bring the Mi-8T, but it doesn't have any rocket pods. It's basically a fairly expensive way to get around. For 60 additional points, I would definitely bring the rocket pods on these. If you want to use them more as an active scout, I'd say tandem them with the BMP-1 Recon, because this guy is going to be very capable as a scout by itself. It's got the Fagot ATGM, quite potent ATGM, 16 AP, frontally won't do that much, side shot will really hurt you. So in this case, I'm going to get basically 12 Recon units for the price of 1 card, so let's get that. Something cheap and fast, the BRDM-2. I want the Mi-24K, but you only get 1 card of 2. So you might have to babysit these guys a bit. They're really good helicopters, they have armor, they got a ton of health. Sadly no ECM, but that arguably would make them a bit too strong. So in this situation, keep these guys alive, especially once we get to the helicopter tab. Spetsnaz grew, really good fighters, really good optics, and they have that ground penetrating radar, or sorry, ground surveillance radar, detecting units beyond visual range. I've had these guys in positions put up against me. They really were very annoying, because they could see everything, even though I could barely see them, and the tanks that followed them, they hurt a lot. And here, a few options. You got 2 cards of Tunguska, you got 1 card of Strela, and you got a couple cards of Igla. I would want to go with a couple of Tunguskas. I don't think I'm going to bring all 6. I think that's a bit much. I'm going to upvet them and take 2 at the Veteran. And the Strela or Igla... Iglas are cheaper, Strelas are more mobile, and they do carry better missiles. It's going to be up to you. I want to have a bit of a mix between expensive and cheap, so I'm going to bring this. And let's say I want to have 6 of those. You could even upvet them even more, but you only get 3. So yeah, you're going to be gaining a little bit of accuracy, but is it worth it for the amount of points or the amount of units that you're not getting anymore? Up to you. I would say no. Helos, quite the nice selection. It's all the Mi-24s. You got the Mi-24V with the rockets. I do like these a lot. This is sort of the bigger brother to the Mi-8T, the helicopter that we have here, the rocket one. These guys fire 57mm rockets, doing 0.68 HE damage. These guys do a heck of a lot more. They do they do 1.46 because they have 122mm rockets. They only carry 20 though. It's the S-13. Those big rocket canisters on the sides. So if you want to use these, make sure that you resupply them often. Which, again, brings me back to the point of having a fob or not having a fob. It's going to come down to your playstyle. You want to use these things often. I don't think they're that expensive to resupply, so you can do it with vehicles. If you want to not have to worry about just having to have a resupply vehicle nearby, clicking on a fob and having them resupply there is easier. So yeah, you can make the case both ways. Mi-24V for anti-air. I would use these because helicopters, I suspect, will be one of your biggest concerns. The tow helicopters, the Apaches with Hellfires, you don't want those anywhere near your tanks. Absolutely not. The Mi-24V anti-tank, as well as the Mi-24VP. I'm not sure if you need either. The rocket pods are nice. The Kokons, I'd say, are not that needed. Because it's an anti-tank weapon. And you already have a 20... what was it? 21? Yeah, you got the 21 on the reflex and the 20 on the main gun of the T-80UD. These things are not the strongest tanks out there, I think. They're pretty damn close, though. I'd say you don't really need these helicopters, because they kind of fulfill the same role. But if you're like trying to meme, you can turn this into a basic helicopter rush deck. It's not very nice, but it probably would work. I'm not going to bring those. I'm going to move on to the air tab. Speaking of the air tab, we have... Why are you still here? Why is this window not leaving? I'm not... What? I don't even have it pinned anymore. Well, I guess we're going to be looking at the stat of the Mi-24V as well. You have 2 different fighters. You got the MiG-29 and you have the SG-27S. SG-27S, more expensive. You only get 2 per card. Sorry, you also get 2 per card here. These guys have 6 air-to-air missiles and 4 long range. These guys have 2 long range and 4 short range. As for their agility, it's exceptional here, it's exceptional there. 30% ECM, 20% ECM, I would bring these. Just because they're less likely to get shot down and more likely to get results. I'd say when you're dealing with, or when you're playing as a tanker group, such as this one, you also want to control the skies. Because without that, you're going to face all sorts of anti-tank planes, Thunderbolts, you're going to be facing the French anti-tank plane, those really fast ones. You need to kill everything that could threaten your tanks. Be it planes, and potentially, if you have full control of the skies, be it helicopters. Because that's also something that the 27S can do quite well. As for the rest, I still have 15 points available. I want to bring the SU-24M with 8 500kg bombs. They're unguided bombs, and they're just there to soften up the infantry, so my infantry and potentially tanks have an easier time cleaning out a position. Keep in mind, you can also use this to flatten a building that you suspect or want to deny the enemy an ATGM position in. So just making sure that the SU-24 is in your toolkit, the SU-24M that is, the HE, it's going to give you more options. The laser-guided bomb, I'm not too big of a fan of. It does crazy amount of HE damage. Is it worth it? I don't think so. I think the 24M HE is more versatile in this role. And then Seed Aircraft. If you're going to take control of the skies, it would be very nice not to have to worry about enemy air defenses. So 2 Seed units with 52% accuracy, or if you want to have 3 of them, just 50% accuracy. Pretty damn nice. I'll take those as well. Leaving me with 39 out of 50 points. Where do I want to spend more? I can get yet another card of UDs. Why not? I can get another card of the TO-55s. Infantry, it is going to start to add up pretty quick. It's now 3 points. Already it's going to be 2 points. So let's have another group of the MSTA. And then get the Vassalex back in. 43 points. Logi. This is going to give you some flexibility, these 3 points. You can bring the BMP 1K3 command unit. You can still bring the FOB if you so desire. You can bring additional NTR if you find that your NTR is insufficient. If you can spread out more Iglas, like this, in tandem with your own fighters, you might be able to take down the enemy fighters, and then the Seed takes down anything that looks like it's going to be pointing up at your fighters. You can pretty easily get control of the skies, I imagine. And that's going to mean that no anti-tank planes will threaten your mainstay, will threaten these UDs. 46 points. This is going to get progressively more difficult because I have 2 activation points there. I got 3 there. NTR is done. This is going to take too expensive. So if I want to max it out the way I have it set up now, let's bring the VP. I'm bringing the VP because it's flexible. Like I said, I don't really need it, but if a teammate on the other side of the map is in trouble, the VP could be a really useful ally to have there. And then the last card, you can bring Concours again as a quick response force in case somebody else is in trouble. These guys do have pretty good range. They have quite a nice amount of firepower, so why not? Let's bring a couple of those. So that's how I would set up the 119th. I haven't played it yet. I am very much looking forward to, and well, Sparky is inviting me to play now, so I should be able to do that right away. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. The deck code or the battle group code down below in the description. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments, and I'll see you soon for more WARNO.